Hello, friends, and welcome to our February Sweet Taste of HeartScapes. This is our monthly free class where we open up this space to dive into all things Reiki, taught and practiced from the perspective of this system's Japanese origins, with particular care on noticing how this system interacts with our daily life, building strategies and methods for bringing this system of practice into our day-to-day life so that we can live a life that is rooted, that is spacious, that is connected to ourselves, to each other, to the world around us, and ultimately we can remember ourselves a little bit more deeply. My name is Michaela here at HeartScapes Reiki. On this class with us is my co-teacher Joe as well. If you have any questions about what we get up to here at HeartScapes, you can feel free to drop them in the chat and one or the other of us will respond as we go through. Today's conversation is one that is a bit tender and a bit vulnerable, as sometimes they do become. We will be talking about the element of the system of Reiki that is probably the most well-known element, the most commonly associated practice with the system of Reiki, which is the practice known as tenohira in Japanese, which translates as palm healing. And here in the West, we often call hands-on healing. Okay, we now have some hands-on fighting with my kittens. Okay, you got to behave yourself or you have to leave. Hi.
As Kayla's talking to her cats, hands-on healing in West, in America particularly, sometimes is often thought of as this is what the system of Reiki is. It's a hands-on healing practice. Um, and one of the things you like to share is there are four other elements to the practice, and hands-on healing is only one of them. And so, appreciating Michaela that you mentioned hands-on healing.
Indeed. And so, almost as a way of kind of counterbalancing the overemphasis on tenohira in our culture, we often will focus on the other elements, in particular, the elements of visualization and meditation, breath work, contemplating the precepts, working with the precepts as the foundation of the system generally. And we really emphasize those as the foundational practices within the system. And sometimes it really is the right thing to settle ourselves into the absolutely sweet medicine of touch. And part of why I wanted to circle around on this topic is that I was invited into something really sweet this month. This month of February being the time when the holiday of Valentine's Day is celebrated. And this can be a time, for regions that do acknowledge this holiday. It's not exactly a holiday. It's a day of acknowledgement. This can be a bittersweet offering. It can be a time that brings us an opportunity to be closer to our loved ones. It can also be a time that emphasizes perhaps distance or disconnection or absence of loved ones. So there's a bittersweetness to this time that I think more and more in our culture we're acknowledging and creating spaces for. So in the particular space of a senior facility in my community, one that has a hospice offering, one that offers mental health services to elders in my community, there was an acknowledgement of this special bittersweetness that we might have if we are approaching this holiday and have recently lost our partner. And so in this community, there are a number of folks who are receiving services who have lost their partner and are perhaps facing their very first Valentine's Day, their first anniversary, their first birthday, their first year without that person in their life. And there are many, many ways in which, of course, an experience of loss like that can be very challenging at any stage in life. And in particular, the acknowledgement that was made is the sudden loss of regular, compassionate, consensual, non-sexual touch. That touch is a human need, that it is something that from the very moment we are conceived to our last day on this earth, it is something that we need as a form of physical and energetic nourishment. That studies have shown that babies who are not regularly touched and interact with physically by their caregivers actually fail to thrive, fail to grow, fail to hit the milestones that they need in order to become a fully functioning person. And as we go throughout our life, there are times when we absolutely seek comfort in physical touch. In fact, um, it's an incredibly instinctive thing, right? If we hurt ourselves, if we bang our elbow, right, we automatically will put our hand there and soothe ourselves with the feeling of warmth and pressure, and care and attention that touch gives us. If a friend or someone we care about is hurting, is feeling sad, or is going through physical pain, we will also often instinctively reach out a hand and place it on their shoulder, give them a hug. It's something that we just know naturally is necessary. And again, studies show that this is true, that our neurobiology, that our energetic system, our emotional system thrives on forms of healthy, again, consensual, compassionate touch. It's just simply something that we need in our lives. And it's something that all of us at some point or another might experience a deficit. That there might be times, for a wide variety of reasons, that we're just not getting the human contact that we need. Perhaps we've moved to a new place and we haven't met friends yet. Perhaps we have lost a partner, and that kind of constant person that we have to cuddle against, to lean against, to give a hug to is no longer there. Perhaps all of us go through an entire year of social distancing because there is a pandemic on the horizon and we are literally not allowed to be in each other's physical presence for a period of time. This was a conversation that did start cropping up in 2020 and 2021 as the reality, the harsh reality of being deprived of physical connection with folks. We could connect in this way on screens, on the telephone, but the deprivation of actual touch became, quite stark during that time, that extended period of isolation. And so it's, I think, a topic that is really worth discussing within the Reiki community, because this system of practice offers us a really beautiful way to introduce touch as a self practice, as a practice to share with others, and as a practice that allows us to touch with intention, with focus, with minimal distraction, and with a emphasis on grounding, on spaciousness, and on connection, whether we are connecting with ourselves or with other people. And so that is why we are here on this topic here today. So for our time today, we're going to just do a little bit of a drop in a moment. We'll open this conversation up a bit, and then we will go through a practice of tenohira together. You can do this practice whether or not you are a Reiki practitioner, whether or not you have ever had a Reiki class or a Reiki attunement. This is a practice. It is a specific practice with specific components that can be learned and practiced by anybody. If you have any questions about that, please do let me know as we move along. So that is way more talking than I usually like to do before we even have a moment to drop in together. So before I go any further, let's just take a moment to take a few breaths together to arrive here in this space and to just open up our heart and mind to whatever we might be relating to with this topic in mind. And Victor, I know you are out with the puppers at the park, so you can engage in these practices in whatever way is available to you as you are walking.
Thank you.
It's actually, I love it when there's folks who are, driving or walking or otherwise engaged while we're in this time, because it really gives us a chance to practice being in Reiki in the midst of life, right? In the midst of whatever it is we're doing, being able to reach for these practices in a way that is nourishing to us. All right, so with that said, let's just take a few breaths together. Allowing yourself to settle into a position that feels supported, whether seated or walking. Letting yourself really notice the sensation of the ground beneath your feet, the support underneath your body. letting that support relax your body so that your breath can move. And let's take 3 gentle breaths into our bellies together. And as you exhale, just invite you to rest your hands on your body anywhere that they feel comfortable. Your legs, your belly, your heart, your hands. And just take 3 more breaths with your attention on that point of contact between your hands and where they are resting. Mm. And then on your next breath, bringing your attention back into the space that you're in and into this space we are in together. Welcome back. So we've had a little bit of a dropping in, a bit of an introduction to this topic. I'd love to give you all a chance to just share what might be on your mind, what might be on your thoughts when you think about this topic. What about this topic drew your attention? And are there any questions that are present for you about the system of Reiki with relate to touch? You are welcome to come off mute or to drop those reflections into the chat. I'm just gonna have a little water while you think about that.
I'm happy to jump in.
Thanks, Victor.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Great. I appreciate the example that you gave of losing a partner. And that's probably, whether it's through passing away or through a breakup, it's probably the majority of people's situation.
Yeah.
But my situation comes more from breaking up with family, moving to another country, being queer, being trans, and, coming to the point in life that spirit is actually the only one who's going to love me, as sad as that is. And it's this fight, this push and pull to connect with humans when so many are tangled up in their own things that they don't, if you're not doing self-care, you can't care for others.
Yeah.
So I was drawn to the topic because I'm at the precipice of realizing that God, spirit, universe, source is really the only one who's going to love me deeply. And I'm struggling with that as I make that transition. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for that acknowledgement. As I said in the introduction, this is a really tender topic for all the reasons that you've named. And I love that you bring us solidly into the space of self-care and of being open to care from the unseen spaces and from the internal spaces. The question of whether we can be deeply and fully known and loved by other humans is one that will always be in flux. We cannot control whether or not other people love us or see us or understand us or can meet us in the kind of care that we need, even if they really want to. Of course, it is our hope that we have those experiences with other people. And it's one of the greatest frustrations in many of our lives when we deeply wish to have that connection with a particular person or people or community, and for whatever reason, it's not available. And there's so much pain that comes from that desire for connection that is not available in its fullness. And it's something that we have so little control over. And that's incredibly frustrating, right? Because we should have experiences of connection with people in the ways that we need. And again, it is something that is a human need. And at the same time, the deepest connection that we have, and the only one that we have control over, is that with ourself. And the deepest connection that we have that we do not have control over, but that we can count on, is, as you say, that connection with spirit, with the unseen, with life, right? With the energies of the world. And so I resonate with what you shared. And what I've found in my life, which has different experiences, but with some resonance, is that the times when I have tried the hardest to, I will use now the word force. I think at the time I would have said encourage, but to be honest, trying to force connection and care from others in the way that I needed were the times when I experienced the most frustration in the fulfillment of that need for care. And as I have learned imperfectly, ongoing, to number one, release that need to control, right? Not dissociate from the desire and the need for connection, right? Because that's the other side of the pendulum, is going into a place of dissociating from other people, of shutting ourselves down to connection, which is a strategy, an understandable and in some cases brilliant strategy that our system, our mind, our heart, our energy, our nervous system, our animal brain, it's a strategy for keeping us safe when we've experienced these kinds of pains. But it is a strategy that ultimately adds more harm and difficulty to our life. So not dissociating, but releasing the attachment to the need to control what other people do. And instead turning to my own ability to control what's happening for me and leaning into that larger container of the world. More and more, I've been using the terms the world and life when I mean spirit, the mystery, right? So these terms, it's like they're imperfect language, but they give us a place to kind of rest our attention on something, something that we don't always fully understand.
Michaela, I appreciate you sharing that piece. And Victor, what you shared about the source of love, when it may not be another human being, or in this case, family. I have some family challenge dynamics that that I can identify with as you shared that, Victor. But what I wanted to just touch on was that is what I find so beautiful and useful and practical about the system of Reiki. It in its origins, some from Buddhism, which I was not a person who knew much about that, but with the system of Reiki, understanding some of its cultural underpinnings, its spiritual, philosophical values that make Reiki what it is, how it works, and why it works so well in topics like this, um, is because it gives us an access other than, for example, my Christian background that I had a lot of, as served Christian churches. Sometimes that still left me with questions of how do we engage these kinds of difficult and tender topics? The need for healthy, well human touch, and where does spirit, God, universe, source, how does that actually fit together? System of Reiki addresses all of these topics fascinatingly. Yeah, go ahead, Michaela.
Yeah, so what I was kind of circling to, with probably more words than necessary, is just that my level of ability to feel content increased greatly when I shifted that focus to self practice and to being open to the connections that were there rather than the connections that weren't. The choice to step away from a relationship of any kind that matters to us is a big one, and one that is sometimes necessary, and is one that carries a lot of weight. So, for any of us who have had to make that choice because it was the right choice for us, I just really hold a lot of respect and compassion for all of us who have made that choice. And that really kind of brings us to, so what do we have control over, right? What do we have the ability to soothe ourselves with, right? Because taking a step back from human relationships might be the right thing to do, but it does leave us deprived in certain areas of our life. Obviously, there's a lot that we could talk about. There's a lot that could and should be talked about in other spheres, like therapeutic spaces, about this topic. Rooting us back into our topic for today, though, the simple need for touch is one that we can share with ourselves. And of course, we always, we do already, right? We do, again, instinctively, place our hands on our bodies often without even thinking about it. What the system of Reiki does, and other systems of mindful embodied practice, is give us a way to really hold a sacred space around that interaction, to put some focused attention on that interaction, to hold back distractions, and to bring in resources of energy from within us, from the web of life around us, to maximize the benefit of that loving touch that we can provide to ourselves. We can also bring that same intention, of course, when we are connecting with other folks. So even if we are not officially in a Reiki session, right? So some of you watching this and participating may be Reiki practitioners who hold formal sessions for folks. Others of you might practice Reiki more informally, primarily for yourself, maybe for friends and family. And some of you might be completely new to the system of Reiki and haven't practiced it at all. No matter where we are in that spectrum, when we have these techniques to be able to bring focused attention to whatever it is that we're doing, in this case, gentle touch, we increase the effectiveness of that moment, and we increase our ability to be present in that moment and to really receive the nourishment of it, including interactions with other people. In this time, we are focusing on Reiki as self-practice. And, again, because that's what we have the most control over, right? We can always be with ourselves in these ways that are nourishing. I guess I'll go ahead and address this piece as well, because there are some important distinctions between the ways that we teach and practice Reiki at HeartScapes from the perspective of its origins, as much as we can as Western people in 2024, and the Western forms of Reiki that have developed. And one of those distinctions is the notion that one has to be attuned to Reiki. In other words, be given Reiki or have their ability to work with Reiki turned on by a teacher who provides a ritual that is often called attunement in Western Reiki. From its origins, this is not what is required. Reiki simply is what we are. It is spiritual energy. It is what animates and connects us. It's what animates life. It's what casts the web of life from the tiniest cell of a single-celled living organism to all of the complex life that exists, to every bit of matter across the entire universe, out to the very edges of the universe as they continue to expand. Reiki is us. It already is you. You don't need me or anyone else to give it to you or turn on your Reiki switch in order for you to benefit from the practice. It's from the beliefs and perspectives of the system of Reiki from its Japanese origins, it is simply a natural phenomenon. It is a fact of the world, of the universe. And the system of Reiki is that human element. It's a system of practice, a system of elements, of practices, of thoughts, of mindsets, of perspectives, of disciplines, of worldview that enables us to maximize our engagement with the Reiki that we already are, and to direct it, to engage with it, to share it in ways that are specific and that are culturally specific to the origins of this practice. And so I wanted to make that distinction because we will be practicing the practice of tenohira, one of the 5 elements of the system of Reiki. And so for some of you who might be watching who think, but I haven't been attuned to Reiki yet, in this space, in this context, that is not what is important. What is important is your focus, your presence, your curiosity, your willingness to try out a practice and to notice the impact of that practice on your day. Simple as that. When we want to walk a path of really learning the system of Reiki, bringing it into our life in a more sustained and comprehensive way, Joe and I teach the system of Reiki both as standalone classes and as a 9-month program that deep dives through the whole system. And so we very much support people who want to be in a comprehensive practice. Then the ritual of Reiju, which is the original form of what we call attunement, is part of that practice, but it is not necessary for what we are up to today in this time. Welcome, Ball. Glad you were able to join us. Any questions or reflections on that piece? Oh, thank you for the applause, Victor. I'm glad you agree with that perspective. Anything anyone would like to ask or to share before we jump into some practice?
Yeah, I'll just share quickly. The applause is for not needing attunements. I've felt this from the beginning, and I have pushed against, so many other people who are delivering a different message. And I love that you say, hey, if you want a structured environment, there's always going to be people who are going to want that.
Yeah.
But if you just want to channel your own Reiki like a millennial, go on with your bad self.
Yeah.
And you will find your clients. You will find clients who want someone who went through a structured program, and people who are like, oh my God, you just made it up. I love that. So that's not me.
Yeah, I do want to make a distinction here in that. So a couple of distinctions here. Firstly, distinguishing Reiki as a phenomenon, right? So Reiki, the word in Japanese, means spiritual energy, and Reiki as a system of practice. So as a system of practice, there is a very specific, culture and history and context within which that system of practice was developed. A certain set of course, mindsets and worldviews that came from Japan, from the history and the culture of that community, that are specific, and that if we haven't learned them, then we're not actually practicing the system of Reiki. And this is where I push back in some of those conversations that you're referring to, Victor, because if we're going to call what we're doing, especially if we're doing that with other people, especially if we're doing it professionally, if we're going to say I'm practicing Reiki, it's my perspective, we should be rooted in at least some understanding of what that system actually is, where it came from, why it is the way it is, what the elements of it are, why those elements exist, what they mean in their original context. We should have some grounding, some rooting in that context if we're going to call what we're doing Reiki, which is a very specific word coming from a very specific place. There are many, many forms of energy work, right? There are many, many ways of accessing spiritual energy, right? The phenomenon of Reiki is what it is, no matter what we call it, no matter where we're from, no matter what time or place we exist. But if we're going to take on the phrasing and the word and the perspective of a particular practice that came from a specific culture, then we should know of which we speak. That's just the way that I hold it. So if one is intuitively working with spiritual practice and with energy without any grounding in the knowledge of where that practice came from, then I would encourage people to use a different word for it. If they want to practice the system of Reiki and use the word Reiki, then there is abundant ways of finding out those details. And once we have that foundation, right? Once we have a solid foundation of understanding what the thing is, where it came from, why it is what it is, why the elements are what they are, then from that foundation, we can, and of course, naturally will, intuitively work with that system in ways that reflect our own life, our own history, our own lineage, our own culture, our own understanding of the world, both from our modern perspective and from the perspective of our own lineages. And so for me, that's the blending, right? Is that we can best intuitively work with the system of Reiki when we are well grounded in what it is. And part of what it is, invites us to realize that we have Reiki and that we are Reiki and that we don't need anyone else to give it to us, but we may need other people to help us learn about the structures of that particular practice, if that makes sense.
Can I just ask you,
Please.
do you give Reiki distance healing?
I do. Yep, that is one of the techniques that is taught in the system of Reiki.
Okay, so you got a website or somewhere I can contact you for that?
Yep, absolutely. I'll put that in I'll drop it in the chat, but it'll also be in the follow-up email. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So Joe, did you have a piece you wanted to add to that before we jump into practice?
Oh gosh, there was so much in what you just shared, Michaela, with all of us. So I just wanted to, reiterate that, if any of this raises any questions or comments or wonderments for yourself, that's meaningful to you, don't hesitate to connect with us. Michaela and I have learned so much about this whole thing, and our personal, each of us, our exposure to Reiki in its more Western forms first for both of us before we really found and it found us, this information Michaela is talking about that's available to any of us, that really helps us be grounded in this knowledge. And like for myself, coming from a deep, strong lifetime martial arts background, which is part of Japanese martial arts, part of the Usui's experience, and it enters into what Reiki is. But even in that world, which has spiritual, philosophical, energetic aspects of it, and things that are very similar to the system of Reiki, doing martial arts to become a better human being, to be in service to each other, right? Reiki is also like that. So then, my experiences with Tai Chi, Qi Kung, yoga, Taoist yoga, all these other things that have a lot of similarities to Reiki. I don't have to create my own system of Reiki that says it's Qigong, Taoist, Tai Chi, Reiki. One of the 3,000 other forms of Reiki. Reiki is Reiki. So I appreciated, Michaela, you sharing that. And within that, I can bring that rich cultural, spiritual, philosophical, energetic heritage that I come with, that Usui came with. And I don't have to be a Buddhist. I don't have to be a martial artist. I don't have to be Shinto because I'm not Japanese in heritage, and still appreciate and have an effective system of practice that helps me have contentment, peace, and joy in life and be well and share that with others. So this is why I'm glad to be here with all of you and appreciate the comments I'm hearing from each of you. Go ahead, Michaela.
Yeah, I was told my chi is down. What does that mean?
Say that again.
My chi is down.
Your chi is down, without spending too much time on that. That is an aspect of Reiki. Ki in Japanese, energy, Ki in Chinese, prana in the yoga systems. It's about our individual and the same energy that's in the world around us. And our energy levels can be down, specifically the acupuncture systems in Chinese traditional medicine, energy systems, and in the system of Reiki, where we are involved with the topic of our ki, our energy, and is it in balance? Is it sufficient? Is it low? Is it excessive? And these are topics that can become important and useful. So please ask us more about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. All right. So I want to give us some chance to do a little bit of tenohira practice. So again, tenohira, the word in Japanese means palm healing, and it was one of the later elements added to the system of Reiki. The very first element of the system of Reiki was the precepts themselves. And really the purpose of this system is to embody those precepts in our life and to remember the wholeness of our true self in doing so. Then alongside of that, how do we do that? Meditations, visualizations, and breath work was one of the first vehicles for how do we bring those precepts into our life? How do we actually live unattached to fear and to anger? How do we live grateful, true to ourselves, and compassionate to ourselves and others? And then contemplations of the mind using symbols, contemplations of the voice using mantra were brought into the system. And then later in the life of our founder, Mikao Usui, the practice of tenohira, of palm healing, was introduced into the system of Reiki through a series of interesting historical events that we won't go into at this time. But if you're curious, you can ask. And that system really brings together these other elements. So there is a particular system of breathing, of visualization, and of sitting with the precepts that we can use to help bring these elements of intention, of presence to physical touch, which, as we've said, physical touch already has its own medicine, its own incredible value to us as humans, whether or not we ever focus any attention on it at all. And doing it in this way really can enhance those benefits. So let us drop into some practice with this. So we're going to begin by settling our body in, again, feeling the support of the structures below you, feeling yourself well supported by the ground, and letting your body relax into that support with a couple of breaths. Noticing if there's anywhere you're holding tension. There's often places that we tend to hold tight, that we tend to restrain. So we can take a couple of breaths with just a gentle invitation to let a bit of that strain go, to let our exhale invite release from those places. In particular, our bellies, our shoulders, and our jaw. Relaxing the pathways of the breath so that our breath can move in and down, all the way down into our low belly. Allowing your belly to expand with your breath, making more space inside. And resting your attention on that movement of your breath so that you draw your focus inward. That you draw your attention back from all the places you've spent it today and bring your focus in and down and into your belly. The belly can be a place that we hold tension, a place that we hold emotions. And therefore, it can be a place that sometimes feels uncomfortable or distressed. And so it can be challenging, if that's true, to bring our attention here. And so we give ourselves some time, some gentleness, so that we can bring our focus in and down into our center. The energy center known in Japan as the hara, the first diamond, the first point in the energy map that we follow within the system of Reiki. And then from this place, invite you to sense or imagine a spark of light here in your center, representing this energy point, this deep well of resources connected to the earth, connected to your physical body. And we're just going to spend a couple of breaths here so that we're well grounded and connected to resources as we go into this practice. Then on your next breath, I'm going to invite you to bring your hands into prayer position at your heart. This mudra, this gesture known in Japanese as gaso, the coming together of opposites. And we're going to practice drawing our attention from this reservoir of energy in our belly to our hands. And we're going to do that simply by shifting our attention with our breath from our belly to our hands. As you breathe into your belly, focus your attention just below your belly button, deep into the center of your body. And as you breathe out, just gently shift your attention to your hands. And on your next breath, drawing your attention back to your belly. Again, the point just below your belly button and deep into the center of your body. And then as you exhale, shifting your attention to your hands. Let's do that 3 times. Now we're going to go through 3 hand placements on the body. Beginning at your head, taking one hand to your forehead, one hand to the back of your head. The back of your head just above your neck, the occipital area, the back of your head. And we'll take again 3 breaths. As you breathe in, follow your breath in and down to your belly. And as you breathe out, gently shift your attention to your hands and to the warmth of the touch of your hands on your head. And then shifting your hands to your throat, to your neck, to your lower jaw, just this whole region. In any position that feels comfortable, so you could cross your hands to reach either side. You could reach around to the back of your neck, wherever feels comfortable. And 3 times, breathing into your belly And as you breathe out, bringing your attention to your hands and the warmth of the touch of your hands on your neck. And then shifting your hands to your heart, the center of your chest. And again, 3 times, breathing into your belly and breathing out to your hands. And then lastly, leaving your hands here for just a moment, I invite you to just kind of scan your awareness throughout your body and notice if there's anywhere that's asking for some attention. Could be a place you're experiencing some pain or discomfort. Could be a part of your body that you rarely pay attention to. Or for any other mysterious reason is calling your attention now. Just letting yourself put your hands to this place that your intuition, that your body itself is asking for attention. And again, 3 times, breathing into your belly and out to this point of contact between your hands and your body. And as you rest your hands and your attention in loving connection with yourself, I can invite you to bring to your mind the 5th precept of the system of Reiki. Just bring this precept into your mind as I say it, and allow yourself to notice what comes up for you. Just for today, I'm compassionate with myself. Just for today, I am compassionate with myself. Kyo dake wa hito ni shinsetsu ni. Just for today, I'm compassionate with myself. Let's take another 3 breaths and just sit with that precept. Notice what you notice. What does it mean to you today to hold compassion for yourself, for your body, for your heart, for the whole of you? Gathering up that question and anything that you have noticed, bringing your hands back into Gaso, prayer position at your heart. With a moment of thanks for your amazing body, for all that it does for you, and for your ability to care for yourself. And when you're ready, coming back into this space together. Welcome back. So that is a simple form of the practice of tenohira. There are a variety of meditations and techniques that one can use to do this practice. That one is my favorite. And as I said, this is a practice that you can do for yourself at any time. It's of course incredibly accessible, right? We often will simply place a hand on our heart or on our belly, or, hold our own hands. Sometimes I find myself kind of wringing my hands in nervousness. And if I can catch that, then I can calm that movement and just be with the sensation of my hands holding my hands, and do that breathing a few times and bring a sense of calm to that gesture, and shifting it from a gesture of worry to a gesture of compassion and care. So in these ways, we can bring these practices to life in our day-to-day. And if you have any reflections or questions from that practice, I welcome them. We have a few more minutes together. Go ahead, Joe.
Well, as you're thinking about your own reflections on this experience together, I'd like to invite us to just notice and remember, uh, remember what we experienced and maybe how it felt, or what meaning it may have for you in this moment. Remember that throughout your day, perhaps. You know, carry and be with, remain with, sustain the energy that we just experienced, and how that might feel, or what you might think about that. And throughout the day, like I injured my hands in a motorcycle accident, and I found myself today just holding my own hands, my hands holding my hands, kind of as Michaela mentioned. And what I'd like to invite us to do as I go out through the rest of my day, remembering this experience with each other, the energy of it, the impact, that warm touch of myself. Just for today, I'm compassionate with myself. Kyodakewa, just for today. Itoni Shinsetsumi. Even the energy of those sounds in English or Japanese. And I also want to invite us to remember that I can breathe in to my low belly, the energetic center of gravity of my body, and breathe out into my hands as I'm holding my own hands. And that is a healing practice in itself with the breath.
Yeah.
Focusing the breath and the mind and the body all together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The system of Reiki gives us a wide range of ways, using the full capacity of all of our senses. So practices of the mind, of the body, of the breath, of the voice, to help us to learn how to focus our attention in ways that direct our energy to our benefit and to the benefit of those around us. Learning to focus our attention is truly at the center of this system of practice. And what better place to focus our attention than on loving care for ourselves and for others, but beginning with ourselves. As we talked about earlier, this is the only sphere in which I actually have full control. Full control is maybe too strong a statement. There's all kinds of things running in the subconscious that I don't currently have conscious control over. But of all the things in this wide and vast universe that I have any control over at all, it's here. Right? This is what I've got. This is what I can focus my attention on in ways that are truly generative. The irony and the beauty, the magic and the paradox of this system is that the more that we learn to focus our attention inward and to clear out the distractions of our day and to be in loving, caring self-regard for ourselves, the more that caring regard radiates outward and touches the people around us, the more we can share this Reiki, this spiritual energy that we are, with those around us in ways that have meaning to them, whether or not they're conscious of it, We don't have to touch another person in order to influence them, to bring some heartful connection to them if they're open, right? Because they, of course, have their own ability to control whether or not they pay attention, whether or not they respond. But we change every room that we walk into, whether or not we or anyone else are aware of it. And so when we engage in these practices that are really focused on focusing our attention on loving self-regard and loving regard of others, then we change the room in the direction of care and of goodness and of healing. Ultimately, that's really what we're up to, remembering our whole self so that others can be more of their whole self in our presence and in their life. And so that is what we have for you today in this time of practicing loving self-touch with the practice of tenohira in the system of Reiki. We hope that this was a generative practice for you. If you want to learn more about what we get up to here at HeartScapes, I'll be sending out an email to those of you who are registered and putting a little bit of information down in the notes of this video about how you can be in contact. Our next Reiki 1 Shoden Reiki First Degree class will begin in March, on March 3rd. And we will be back next month with this free class that we offer every month on rotating topics. We're always open to suggestions for what we might focus on in future topics, so feel free to reach out and let us know what you would like to practice here in this space. So thank you all so much for joining. Those of you who are able to join live, those of you who will be catching up on the replay crew, we love you. Thank you so much for being with us, and be well. May you be well provisioned as you go throughout the rest of your day. Thank you so much.